What's going on, guys? My name is Joe. This is the Duel Factory, and today I have a regional report for you for the Tinley Park regional that I attended last weekend. I did take Bystial branded to the actual event for a couple reasons. One, I didn't really want to play a Shizu tier. Not that I don't like the mirror match, but they do take forever. Two, I thoroughly enjoy playing rogue events, especially once I already have my invite. And the goal is I wanted to take a rogue deck and give myself the best position to top 8. And I thought this deck had a really good shot at doing that just because the actual Bystial engine is so powerful. And once you do like playtesting, as I'll go along in the video and tell you, like once you realize that this is more of a Bystial control deck versus like a branded deck, then you'll see a lot of better results with the deck itself. But before I start the profile, I wanted to give a really big shout out to Aaron, one of the guys that's in, and also to my personal Discord server and Bingo HG's Discord server. I think from the Saturday, the week before Saturday, and then to the actual event, which fell on a Sunday, I think, what is it? They helped me test theory, and I think the deck list changed like 13 different times. Aaron specifically made sure I had all the cards I needed for the deck because I was on vacation and I left a majority of my stuff back at my home, so I didn't have to travel back to go get it and stuff like that. And I really wanted a top 8 for him, but I did fall short. But I still wanted to show you guys what I played. So enough about that. Oh, one other thing, because Bingo HE's been more active in the actual community and stuff like that, I ended up making a Instagram and stuff like that where I can start posting a little bit more into on social media outlets. And I'll also be showing off some of the high-end cardboard that I buy, because as most of my longtime viewers know, I do like to buy high-end cards and stuff like that. It's just because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like my only hobby that I actually like invest into. And I'll be showing off stuff right there. Plus, we'll also be able to see X2 Drop is also been more active lately. We started that up about 2 weeks ago, and then we also post a lot of our video clips and stuff like that there too. So I'll leave a link in the description below. Go check that stuff out. And enough being said, let's actually get into the list. So for the actual, I'll start with the Bystial engine because, like I said, this is more of a Bystial control deck than a branded deck. So we do play 2 copies of Lubellion. We were playing 3 at first. I thought that was too many. Then I actually cut it down to 1 in a previous locals that we tested at. And then I found that you actually need the second one because sometimes you need to be able to send another light. You need a light monster in deck to send off Brain Infusion, and Bystial Lubellion fits the bill perfectly. We did test Blazing Cartesia, but until the new cards come out, I don't think it's worth the slot. Plus, opening this card's not terrible because it also searches another Bystial monster to put into your hand. But the big thing is you always want this card in rotation for all your turns. And then for the actual Bystial, the regular Bystial monsters, we play 9 of them. So we play 3 copies of Magdamut. Not much to say here. A lot of people forget that this card can search any Dark Dragon, or I think it's just any dragon in general, but it can also search cards like Fallen Albaz, which is actually kind of crazy, so keep that in mind. We play 3 copies of Druid Worm. Now, arguably, this deck doesn't take advantage of the sending effect as well as other decks do. The big way to do it is summoning it on your opponent's turn with Branded Beast. But you still need to be able to, you need to maximize on those cards because they're really good against the tier matchup. And then we play 3 copies of Saronir. This one is arguably the best one in the deck because it actually works with all your branded cards too, because it sends any branded spell or trap, which is actually crazy. So you have more access to cards like Branded Regain with Branded Beast. It can send Fusion, so that way you can edit off Retribution. Like this card has a lot more value in this deck than other tier decks. And then we go on to the Despia monsters. We play 3 copies of Alibur, mainly because it searches Fusion. And it's also one of your best starters. And then we play 1 copy of Tragedy. I do not like playing this card, but you need it as an engine requirement because sometimes you need to be able to send it off of Branded Fusion, so that way you can add Alibur to do your 2-card combos and whatnot. And then, believe it or not, that is the only Despia monsters I actually play in my list. I did cut Ad Libitum of Despia from my deck, and I put it in the side deck, mainly because the big thing with that card is, yes, it's good, but it's only good, 1, with Branded in red, and 2, it's only good if your graveyard is not touched. And what I mean by that is because the Ishizu tier deck is the most popular strategy right now, and the Grave Shufflers are everywhere, 9 times out of 10, your Branded in red to target Ad Libitum, or like Ad Libitum effect to target like a monster in a graveyard, stuff like that, is not going to resolve against that matchup. Like, a lot of the times when I was playing, like, Branded in red, Ad Libitum, and Branded Banishment were the first 3 cards that came out of my main deck. So that being said, Branded in red and Ad Libitum did get moved to the side deck because they're very good against the Flunder deck. I still main deck the Branded Banishment, but that's because in the branded banishment with branded lost face up, it's really, really good against Tirishizu, and the only out they have is an actual Grave Shuffler at that point, or they need to be able, or they also need to have a Bystial monster, which some of them are actually cutting back on some Bystial monsters. But the fact that it can banish the materials off the board and make your own Rukalos is the reason that I still played the banishment. So, brief explanation on that. And then I played 2 Albaz. I was playing 3 at first, but then like the more and more I tested, like, sure, drawing into this card's kind of insane, but you don't want to see multiple copies of it, so I think 2's fine for now. There's still an argument to play 3, but I think 2's the perfect number. 1 copy of Albion. We are playing it because we do play Branded Loss, and it can be searched off Magnum. But this card, honestly, it's really nice because it gives you more versatility in like your card selection and stuff like that. Because being able to send to the graveyard is actually insane, especially when you go first, knowing that your Branded Beast can set any face-up continuous spell or trap that has Branded in the name. So like, the card's crazy. And then I still elected to play the Patchwork Engine. So I'm playing 3 copies of Edge Imp Chain. This card, to me, is actually still insane into the deck. Like, sure, you're not summoning, like, Fusion Lubellion as much, but, like, discarding this off a Branded Opening and discarding this off of Fusion Lubellion and then being able to fuse with it is still insane. And, like, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't know how this deck kills without this engine in it if you don't see your Bystials. You know what I mean? Like, sure, like, opening multiple copies of it suck, but, like, the deck gives you so much advantage that the deck actually needs to be able to function properly. Like, it's just crazy to me that people are cutting the engine. And that's it for the monster count. We are going to go on to the spell lineup. I wasn't playing this card at first, but I am playing 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. 2 things. 1, your deck, whether believe it or not, can comfortably banish 6 every single turn if you had to, right? Or turn 1, it can banish 6 comfortably to play the game. 2, you need the added consistency that this card actually provides to the deck, because the best 2-card opening in your deck, believe it or not, is Aliber Branded Fusion. Because if you go Aliber Branded Fusion, that is your full combo under Branded Loss, and then the first point of interaction your opponent can actually interact with you with like Bystial cards or anything like that, is when they finally get to the point where you already have Mirror Jade on board, Bystial Lubellion on board. That is the first point of interaction they can actually use it if your Branded Fusion, your 1 Branded Fusion resolves under Branded Lost. Now that being said, this card does conflict with cards like Guardian Chimera going second. It also conflicts with cards like Albion the Branded Dragon. But the nice thing is, even if you can't draw off Albion the Branded Dragon itself, you're almost all your combos in your deck that you search can be self-contained, right? Like, people don't realize that, and I'm actually going to show a couple combo videos of what I mean by like your combos are self-contained, even under Pot of Prosperity. But, like, you just need, in a format like this, where you're playing a rogue strategy, and, like, the tier 0 deck of the format is leaps and bounds more consistent, you need the added consistency boost to be able to play. So that's why we did that. And then the best card in your deck, by far, is the 3 copies of Branded Fusion. If you resolve it, you should win. 3 copies of Branded Opening. This is essentially just more copies of Branded Fusion. And then the 1-ofs, we play 1 Branded Loss and 1 Branded Regain. I don't care what anyone tells you, like, for this current format, Branded Loss is mandatory. Like I said, when you're doing your combo, if you open, like, Branded Loss, and like I was saying, like, Aliber Branded Fusion is, like, the best opening in your deck, the first point of interaction, like, as you're playing it with, like, Bystial cards specifically, is the fact when you're at the point where Mirror Jade and Lubellion are already on the board. Like, it's insane what this card does. And then, like, when you, like, going into, like, opposing boards, when you activate this to poly for Guardian Chimera, like, you pop your cards with, your opponent's cards with Guardian Chimera, like Rukalos and, Kaleido Heart, and like stuff like, you know what I mean? And then like they can't activate their effects to bring back because Branded Loss says they can't respond to this fusion summon of a fusion monster. You know what I mean? Like it's that is the first point of interaction. So like the card's just mandatory. Like you just have to play it. And then Branded Regain is how you beat most of your matchups too, because this is what gives you a grind game. Like, other than, like, cycling cards through your deck because it puts a card back if a Light Dark Monster is banished and draw a card. But it can also target Bystials in your graveyard that are not named Lubellion, keep that in mind. And then it special summons and just keeps putting bodies on your board, and it's really hard for opposing decks to go through that. So, we have that going, and then we play 2 Patchwork, and then 2 Poly. I wanted to make the argument to play 3 Patchwork. The problem is like 9 times out of 10, if I come out and ask myself, what card do I want in my hand? Do I want Patchwork in hand, or do I want Edge Imp Chain in hand for like situations? Like 9 times out of 10, it's always Edge Imp Chain. So like that's why I cut for Patchwork too. Plus, I wanted to keep the deck count to 40. And then I'm also playing the one Called by the Grave. Like, this card's insane. Like, it's just, if you think about it, like, it's more or less, like, when you draw, it's like having another Bystial. Like, that's all it is. Plus, technically it still does stop, like, generic hand traps. Like, one of the big reasons I play this deck is because my Branded Fusion is almost always resolving unless you're playing against a Sprite player that main decks Ash Blossom. But, like, that, your Branded Fusion is almost always resolving. So, like, and you don't play hand traps yourself, so, like, this card just becomes infinitely better. But, like, yeah, the card's just insane. And then we played 3 traps. We played 1 copy of Branded Beast. You're setting this card up almost every single turn. We are playing the 1 copy of Banishment. I'm still main decking this. Even though I made the argument that Ad Libitum and Branded Red aren't very good. I still think you need to be able to set, like, this card specifically against the tier limit board, because it's one of the more threatening cards that you can actually set against them, because, like I said, it does more than what Branded Red can do, because it can banish their cards, right? So, and then I also play 1 Branded Retribution. You want something that you can send off Saronir that can guarantee you a follow-up for the turn, because the Branded Retribution can add any Branded Spell or Trap back from graveyard to hand, so you can bring back Branded Fusion, and then, yeah, you're off to the races on that one. But, like, yeah, those are the 3 cards. Plus, it has a really cool negate effect. Doesn't come up as much, but it does come up if you draw it. So there's that. And then on to the extra deck. We are playing 2 copies of Albion. First, I was playing 3, and then, like, the more and more I played it, like, because of, like, all the Bystial monsters in the format, like, your Lubellion, 9 times out of 10, isn't going to resolve for an Albaz Fusion. And honestly, if you just work on your resource management, 2 is honestly the perfect number. So we're playing 2 for now. Like I said, this could change depending on how the format, like, evolves even further, but right now, I think 2 is the perfect number. I did play 2 copies of Mirror Jade. I did want to play 1, and arguably when I activate Pot of Prosperity, 9 times out of 10, I am banishing 1 of these copies. But there are, like, small niche situations where you need the 2nd copy in your extra deck. And then I also played 1 copy of Albalinatus and 1 copy of Lubellion the Searing Dragon. I never thought that you need a Lubellion at more than 1 copy. You can recycle it, like, turn 1, and then, like, if you have to, like, use it to, like, shuffle back other cards, like, you don't really miss it in the extra deck. That being said, there is an argument you could play 2. I did play the 1 copy of Albalinatus, and then surprisingly enough, I did play a Dragon Link player at the actual event, and I summoned this card for like 4 attacks, and it was actually pretty lit. On to the non-Albaz fusion monsters. I did play 2 copies of Masquerade. I think going forward, I do want to make room for the 3rd one. I think I know exactly what I would cut. This card was insane for me. Like, a lot of times, like, if you have to, like, you can end on, like, you don't have to end on Mirror Jade. Like, if they say, like, they Bystial your Albaz out of the graveyard and you don't have a way to summon an Albaz fusion, you can always summon a Masquerade, and, like, your opponent has to play through, like, Masquerade, and they have to play through, like, your Bystial cards, and, like, that's what, like, insane setup already. A lot of the times whenever I summon this monster, I did put it in attack mode, because if you go against, like, opposing tier matchups and stuff like that, a lot of their monsters are boosted by the field spell, so they're going to be over the 2,000 threshold, which is defense, but a lot of the times they won't be over the 2,500 threshold. And then especially against, like, Flunder decks and stuff like that, like, one of the best ways to do, like, the double Masquerade combo is Branded Opening and Edgem Chain. So you're going to put him in attack mode anyway against that deck, because then only their tribute summon monsters can get over it, and even if they have Lightning Storm, like, you're going to put them on better habit, because, like, 25 is huge to get over in that deck. So 2 of that, and I do want to make room for a 3rd copy, so... And then some other fusion targets. We played 1 Guardian Chimera, 1 Rukalos. You only need 1 Guardian Chimera. You're not summoning it, and arguably, I only summoned it like once or twice in the event, but you still need to play it. And then the reason I played the Tournament Rukalos is, like I was mentioning earlier, was for the Branded Banishment. Because you can Branded Banishment, take their Kikalos, and then one of their tier monsters, and can make your own Rukalos. And then that's kind of cool, because 1, now they have to play under your Rukalos. And 2, a lot of tier players are only playing 1 kit, so once you take away their kit, like, they don't have that for the rest of the game, and that's insane, which means they also take care of their Rukalos, so they just lost 2 extra deck slots. Though after, like, playing, I might end up cutting it, I'm not 100% sure, but we'll find out. And then we are playing 1 Dragostapelia, and we are playing 1 Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. I think if you're playing Branded Banishment, you do have to play Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, just because it makes your Branded Banishment infinitely more lethal than what it would have been if you didn't have access to the card. 2, there are some people still playing the Ad Ignister deck, and this is how you out the big Link monster. Bread of Plant Dragospelli has been there since the dawn of time. And then 1 tech that I did take from Pack's channel, as many of you know, I'm a huge Pack fan. I did play 1 Borreload Furious Dragon. 2 reasons. 1, It's another card that's very lethal under Branded Banishment because the requirement is 2 Dark Dragon monsters, and almost every single deck plays Bystials. Another huge reason, this is also another monster that you can make under Fusion Lubellion. Fusion Lubellion can shuffle back both Albions that you play to recycle them into your extra deck so you have them for the grind game, and then you get to summon this card. And then it's also an interruption because you can destroy one card you control and one card your opponent controls. So like you could, well, like one of the plays I did do, and it actually did come up, is you Fusion Lubellion for Borreload Furious Dragon by putting your 2 Albions back to your extra deck. And then you can pop a card and then pop the Lubellion on the board, and that way it clears those cards, recycles, and then it's also a 3,000 beater. So this card actually is really, really good in this deck. Like it's not like one of those like meme cards or cap cards. Like it actually has a purpose. And then I did play a XYZ and a Link. I did play Dark Charmer, and I did play Wallow. So one of the big things is you're not always going to see your Branded Fusion, but you want to be able to actually do something that's actually relevant to the format. And also, these give, like, essentially, it actually did come up where I played against a tier player that made, like, so, full disclosure, I opened 3 different named Bystials and played against a tier player and summoned all 3 of them, and then he made Baguska and passed and put all my Bystials in defensive position, and as a branded player, you think that's like a game ender because, you know, my monster's going in defense mode. But being able to take, like, my Saronir and my Druid Swarm and link them into a Dark, and then get the Druid Swarm effect to remove the actual Baguska off the field is incredibly relevant. And then follow that up by using the Dark to take one of their Magnaments so I can search a Bystial of my own, then overlay the Magnamut and his Magnamut to make a Wallow so that way I have further Grave Interruption. These 2 cards do come up because you're not always going to have Branded Fusion, so I think you do need to play these in this deck currently. Plus, worst case scenario, you can also banish them going first with Pot of Prosperity, and that's just 2 like banishes you have for free right there. But like as like playing against like opposing decks, like I think you absolutely have to play these. And that is the extra deck, and then since this is for a regional report, I will show you my extra deck. So starting with this, I played 3 copies of Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. So this was at one point, what was the card? This was Skullmeister at one point, because I thought it had more points of interaction, but the thing with like Ghost Bell versus like Skullmeister, sure, Skullmeister can hit anything in the graveyard, but I think Bell hits every point of interaction against the Ishizu tier matchup that Skullmeister would. Plus, it has the benefit of not being a dark attribute monster or light attribute monster. It's an earth monster. So that's why I decided to play Bell. And being able to side this in, and like it also hits like opposing, like one thing that Skullmeister can't do that Bell can is it can negate opposing Bystials whenever you're trying to resolve your own Bystials, right? So that was the big reason to play this over Skullmeister. And then for another engine, I did play 3 copies of Zombie World and 1 copy of Necroworld Banshee. To be 100% honest with you, you do, like, if you're going to side this in, especially against, like, flu decks and stuff like that, or, like, any deck that, like, actually is hampered by Zombie World, you would rather draw it versus, like, Branded Fusion sending, like, Necroworld Banshee and stuff like that, because if you had the option, you would rather your Branded Fusion sends the Bystial Lubellion rather than send Necroworld Banshee, because like being able to set up your board and then them having to play under that is infinitely more powerful than just, you know, having them play under a Zombie World. You know what I mean? So like that's why we played the 3-in-1. And then for the hot takes, I side decked 1 copy of Ad Libitum and then 1 copy of Branded in Red. I still wanted these cards for anything that wasn't a Shizu tier or anything that had like a major Bystial lineup. You know what I mean? So like I did play against a Dragon Link player, but he played just as many Bystials as I did, so that did not come in. This did come in against the Draco Slayer player that I ended up getting waxed by anyway, because have them playing through a Guardian Chimera is very, very hard. Other than that, the 3 Ishizu tier decks that I played, these cards never came in. Like, the Branded Red Ad Libitum never came into the deck because I didn't want anything that didn't have a chance of resolving, and those cards just went out. And honestly, I didn't miss them at all. Like, whatsoever. Like, I played 3 Ishizu tier, spoiler alert, I went 3-2, and since I couldn't top 8 at that point, I dropped from the event. But the 3 Ishizu tier players that I did play against, a lot of the times, like, if you go first, you're doing your Lubellion combo anyway. Or if you're in game 3 and, like, you have, like, less than, like, 8 minutes left, you're doing the double Masquerade combo, and you're telling your opponent to play. And Branded in Red and Ad Libitum do not come up in any of those combos. So that's why I decided to side deck it. And honestly, it was a perfect slot in the side deck. I did play 3 copies of Triple Tactics Talents. I wanted this card going second because of how powerful it is. It does conflict with Pot of Prosperity. That's why I wanted it in the side deck, because going second, like, I'm a full disclosure, I side out Prosperities for this card. But if I'm going first, I still do side this card in because I want the ability to see it, so that way if my opponent still activates a card, I can still take cards out of their hand. And then this card was changed from Lightning Storm to Cosmic Cyclone to Evenly Matched and stuff like that. But I wanted the biggest reason I wanted to play this over the other cards, and I explained this to some of the people that I was testing with, and they agreed with me, is this is the one card that, like, if you're going against an opposing Flu player going second, you can activate this before the main phase, and you can hit the trap card and the field spell, which are arguably the two hardest things to play through, because you're going to normal summon, like, if you don't have a Brandon opening, you're going to normal summon your Aliber, which triggers the field spell, and then they always have the trap card. But if you can remove them before the main phase, then you don't have to worry about it. And that was the biggest argument to play this card. And that was main side and extra. On to the matchups. It's very, like I said, I played 5 rounds. It was very simple. I played 3 Shizu Tearlament. I played 1 Draco Slayer, and I played 1 Dragon Link. Rounds 1 and 2, I played against the Shizu Tier matchup. Opening Bystials and combos, I beat both of those. Third round, I played against the Dragon Link player, arguably the coolest guy I played all day. He was very well versed in his deck. And then I ended up winning that matchup. Fourth matchup, I ended up playing against the Draco Slayer deck that ended up winning the event. His deck was super saucy. And plus, it was like refreshing to not have to play against another Shizu player. So, like, that was cool. And then the 5th round was another Shizu Tinley player, which arguably he was the best player in the room. That being said, game 1 I bricked, and I just was not able to play, which was very, very unfortunate because my deck has been so consistent, and then all of a sudden I just don't get to play, so that was very, like, heartbreaking. And then game 2, I had a very, very awkward line, but I was able to do, like, here's the option. I can end on a single negation, not single negation, but a single point of interaction, which would have been the Mirror Jade, or I put him under Double Masquerade and make him have it. And that's what I did. I put him under Double Masquerade, told him better have it. Unfortunately, he had it. So that was my regional experience. I did want a top 8 for Aaron because I loaned so many cards, but I wasn't in the cards. But that was my Bystial branded Tinley report. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to go like, comment, subscribe. Check out the new Instagram account that I made that I will be posting high-end cards there. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.